Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to start off with the second portion of the chapter of personal selling and sales promotion. We're going to quickly recap what we did in the previous class before starting off with today's lecture. So we started off with personal selling, and we talked about how personal selling was the interpersonal part of the promotional mix. For advertising, we said it's the non-personal sales presentation. For sales promotion, it is generally non-personal. But for personal selling, it is specifically an interpersonal part of sales promotion. Now, personal selling may be face-to-face, where you directly interact with the person physically, or it could be through a telephone, it could be through a video or web conferencing. So all these 3-4 methods are actually categorized under personal selling. Then we talked about salespeople. Salespeople, we said, are the link between the company and the customer. Now, for customer, they are the manifestation of the company, and for company, they are sort of representing the customers, because they are the ones who directly deal with the customers. So they have the first-hand feedback of the customer. They exactly know their problems, they exactly know their grievances, and as a result of which, they're a rich source of information when it comes to understanding the needs of your customers, right? So you have, for a Salesforce person, they are, they represent both the bodies. Then we talked about how in the previous times, sales and marketing were considered two very separate functions and had very separate departments. But nowadays, people have realized that these two departments needs to work in a coordinated fashion, so that they can, create better and more profitable results for the company. We talked about, how could they work closely with the company. They could, have liaisons team, right? So you could have teams who could work with the other departments' teams and, sort of work together. And you need to, make sure that, you bridge the gap between sales and marketing for effective working of the organization. Then we talked about managing the Salesforce. Salesforce management is all about the analysis, planning, implementation, and control of your Salesforce activities. Right. Then we talked about designing your Salesforce structure. One of the key elements of managing your Salesforce is designing your Salesforce structure. Now, you have 4 options when it comes to designing your Salesforce structure. The first one being territorial Salesforce structure, product Salesforce structure, then you could have customer Salesforce structure, and then a complex Salesforce structure. We discussed all these one by one, and we talked about how territorial Salesforce structure works best. So we talked about territorial Salesforce structure works best if you have, a single product line, right? So it works best if you have single product line, and what you do here is that you, sort of create, you bifurcate the bigger market into smaller chunks based on geography. You could, create segments within, let's say, Pakistani market, and divide it into 3-4 different segments. So you could have a north zone, south zone, or you could divide it by province, so Balochistan, Punjab, Sindh. So the various ways in which or through which you could, geographically segment your market. Once you do that, each geographical boundary would have its own sales team. And if something goes wrong within that geographical boundary, you exactly know who is accountable for that, problem, right? Problem or opportunity or, profitability, either ways, right? So you know exactly who to punish or who to reward when it comes to sales within a particular boundary. It also lowers the expenses because people sitting in Islamabad don't have to regularly interact with somebody sitting in Karachi, right? So if it wasn't for the geographical Salesforce structure, then they would be traveling every time to Karachi. They would incur the traveling costs, they would have boarding and lodging costs. So it costs a lot of money for maintaining all these expenses, right? So that those expenses would automatically be reduced if you have a Salesforce structure based on territories. Then obviously the people you interact with, you're in close proximity with, you're better able to maintain relationship with those clients, right? So you have good relationship with your neighbors rather than somebody who is far off, right? So somebody who is nearby, you tend to maintain good relationship with them, and that's why we said long distance relationships don't work, because the distance is a very strong variable when it comes to relationship building. Now we talked about product Salesforce structure. Product Salesforce structure refers to a structure where each salesperson sells along the product line. So if you have a lot of product lines, then it's a good idea to have Salesforce separated as per product line, right? We talked about the example of General Electric. Now General Electric is a huge company that produces a range of products. You start from aviation coming down to home appliances. They produce everything, hospital beds, hospital equipment, aviation equipment, fridge, TV, range of equipment. So what happens is that every product line has its own product knowledge, right? So somebody a salesperson who specializes in aviation, he might not know about home appliances. Somebody who knows about home appliances would not know something, probably not a lot about aviation. And when it comes to Salesforce management, when it comes to a salesperson, they're expected to know everything about their product that they're selling. You can only convince somebody into buying the product when you know how to convince them. And how would you know? By knowing your product well, right? So how would you know the product well? If it's related to you, or you specialize in its in its technical details, right? So if you want to make sure that your salespeople specialize in the technical detail of the product, then you need to allocate them a single product line so that they could study about it, they could know more about it, and their efficiency could be better, because it's humanly not possible to know everything, right? So if you're trying to learn everything, you pretty much end up learning nothing. You get frustrated, and as a result of which people leave their jobs. So that's not what you want. So it improves the product knowledge, but it can lead to territorial conflicts, right? So territorial conflicts would be that let's say General Electric is selling air conditioning to a particular hospital, and that hospital is also seeking new beds from General Electric. So two salespersons from the same company would approach the same company to sell their products, right? So within a single geographical boundary, many of your sales teams would be working, and they might come in conflict with each other. Then we talked about customer Salesforce structure. Now customer Salesforce structure works best if you have huge clients, right? So if you're an FMCG company, then huge clients would be the big retail stores that you have in the country, right? So big retail stores would not like to interact with your sales force from each product line, right? Or from each of your geographical boundary. But they would rather enjoy working with one Salesforce team that is based on that is specifically designed for them, right? So that is customer Salesforce structure, which refers to structure where each salesperson sells along customer or industry line and improves customer relationship. Then depending upon the type of organization you have, your sales structures would vary. Now, how would they vary? You know, a company might have a geographical Salesforce structure. At the same time, they are selling along, you know, customer Salesforce structure as well. So what happens in complex Salesforce structure is that you employ multiple type of structures to create your own structure, right? It's very similar to the idea of departmentalization, right? So what happens in departmentalization, you could create departments based on tasks, you could create departments based on products, you could create departments based on customers, and you could create departments based on all of this, right? So when you employ you know, different Salesforce structure to create a tailor-made structure of your own, that is a complex Salesforce structure. Right, so we talked about the structure, and now we're going to talk about Salesforce size. How many people to have within your Salesforce? Now that's an important question to answer, rather a very tricky question to answer. Now, Salesforce size depends upon the type of product that you have, the type of industry that you're working in, the sort of objectives that you need to meet. So all this affects your Salesforce size. And there are different methods that help you calculate your Salesforce size. One of the method is the workload method. Now in workload method, you create categories of different customers, and based on those categories, what you do is that you calculate, you know, average number of calls or average number of, you know, interactions needed, and based on that total data, you calculate the number of salespeople that would, you know, suffice that, you know, that number of interactions. Right? So that is a workload approach. The thing here is that, you know, increase in Salesforce would increase your sales, but to a certain extent, right? Salesforce, maintaining a, you know, huge Salesforce costs you a lot of money, because at the end of the day, you need to pay them TDA, you need to pay them their salaries, commission, bonuses. All of this needs to be paid to your Salesforce. So you need to make sure that you are at, you know, the right level of Salesforce size. If it's more than a particular level, it is just an expense, right? And if it's less than a particular level, then you might not end up selling to your true potential, right? So you need to make sure that you do not oversize your Salesforce and you don't undersize your Salesforce. It's just at the right level. Right, getting to today's lecture, we're still on managing Salesforce. Now a Salesforce has outside salespeople and it has inside salespeople. Now outside salespeople are those people that go into the field, interact with customer face to face, and, you know, try to bring in sales. On the other hand, there are inside salespeople who conduct business from their offices and often support the outside salespeople. So that would include your sales assistants, your technical experts. So all these are your inside Salesforce. Now outside salesperson may go interact with, you know, some client, and he may, you know, get a feedback from them. He might go back to the inside Salesforce person, and the inside Salesforce person then might do further working on it. So salespeople, you know, outside salespeople would call on the customer in the field. Now what companies do is that, you know, they create selling teams, right? That's the concept that companies these days work on. Now team selling is used to service large, complex accounts, right? So if the account is really big, it's a complex account, and it is not possible for one salesperson to deal with that particular client, right? So for that you have business development teams who work in, you know, servicing different clients, and that's the approach that companies these days take. For instance, many big companies, including IBM, Xerox, Procter & Gamble, all these teams work under the team selling concept. Once you've once you know all the details, what structure you're going to use, what size are you going to have about your, regarding your sales force, then you need to recruit your sales force. Now, careful selection and training would increase your chances of success within an industry, right? So you need to carefully choose people who could represent your company better. Because if you make the right choice, at the end of the day, they would make better sales, and then you would gain more profit. So you need to choose people extremely wisely. Other than recruiting people, you also need to train these people, and training is quite an expensive task for company. And you need to train employees, every now and then. If you don't make the right selection, that means the money that you're spending on the training would also go down the drain, right? So you need to select properly so that you could later train the employees properly, because training costs you a significant amount of money. Also, another thing to consider here is retention of the employee. Right? So many people interact with a certain company because they like a certain employee. If the company loses that employee, then they would lose the customer also. Now, the concept that we studied about customer-owned loyalty, right? And how we talked about that a specific salesperson might be the only manifestation of the company a customer might have. So you don't want to lose your key sales people, because it would not only disrupt the sales, but it would also affect the relationship of the company with that customer. And that's not what you would want for generating good profits. Now, once you've hired the person, then you also need to compensate the person. Now, compensation has many elements to it. There's a fixed compensation or fixed amount, which is your base salary, the salary that you get at the end of the month. The other element of compensation is the variable amount. Now, variable amount varies with the number of sales that you make, right? So commissions are, commission and bonuses are variable amounts. They tend to vary each quarter, each month, each year, right? So one year you would be getting 20,000 bonus, the other year you might not be getting any bonus at all. One month you're making, let's say, 40,000 commission, the other month you're making 60,000, the other month you're making 80,000 commission. So that is variable aspect of your compensation. Then the next one is your fringe benefits, the medical allowance that you get, the house rent that you get, the telephone bills that are paid for, right? Your children's education that might be paid for, a paid vacation. So all these fall under the fringe benefits. And lastly, the expenses. Expenses could include your the amounts that you're repaid for, right? So you're paid for. For instance, you travel from Islamabad to Karachi, you're given TADA to cover your expenses for that travel, right? You make an approach to somebody, let's say in Attak, you go by your own car, they would pay for the fuel, the food and everything. That is all covered in the expenses portion of your compensation. So these four are your elements of Salesforce compensation. Now, generally what happens is, the fixed amounts of the salaries or of the compensation are usually much lower, and salespersons generally tend to make money out of the variable amounts portion of their compensation. But companies nowadays are changing that. Why? One of the biggest reasons of this change is when they used to compensate people based on commissions, what people used to do, or what salespeople used to do, they used to sort of force the sale, right? So they didn't work on building relationship, rather they worked on, making a sale, which was in short term profitable, but in long term did not prove to be healthy for the company. So to encourage people to sort of work on building relationship rather than making a sale, they increase the fixed amount more than the variable amount. So that now they like to have a good amount of in terms of fixed amount, and variable amounts have been reduced. Now we just talked about how important was training. Training is generally done for two basic reasons. They want to teach salespeople to learn how to build relationship with the people, or how to build relationship with your clients. That's the first aspect that they cover in training. And the second aspect that they cover in training is effective sales. How to make the sales pitch, who to approach to, and how best to present. All these are part of effective selling, and this is what you train your salespeople for. Now another important aspect when it comes to training is e-learning, right? So with changing technologies now, a lot of companies are opting for e-learning, that is online training of their employee. And interestingly, the online training costs you far less money than the traditional mediums of, or the traditional way of training people, that is physical classroom setting training, right? It costs you far less money because of the fact that when you train people online, you don't have to bear the boarding and lodging expense, which usually accounts for 40% of the overall training cost. So you reduce that expense to a bare minimum when it comes to boarding and lodging and training your employees, right? So the online training costs you far less money. That is one reason why companies are going exceedingly for online trainings. Another reason is that if I expect to get a training in, let's say, relationship building, and I'm busy in some other, let's say, work, I might choose to schedule my training as per my own schedule, and I don't have to be time bound, right? So it's more flexible if it's online training. I can go listen to the lecture 10 a.m. in the morning or 10 p.m. at the night, depending upon my choice, right? So it's far more flexible at the very same time as well. Then another important aspect is supervising and motivating your salespeople. You need to keep on supervising, and you need to keep on motivating your salespeople so that they are in the right direction. Now many companies supervise closely, very closely, and some supervise slightly less closely when it comes to their Salesforce people. So the goal of supervision is to help salespeople work smart by doing the right things in the right way. Now what companies do is they usually make call plans whereby they would tell their salespeople what is expected of them in, let's say, a month, or in this particular week, or in this particular quarter, right? That is a call plan. Or a more detailed and a more closely supervised employee are given the time and duty analysis. Now what they do in time and duty analysis, they just not calculate who to approach to, but when to approach to, what would be your travel time, what would be your lunch break time, how much time would it take to reach your prospective client. So all this is calculated, the time and the duty, and it is sort of a very close guarded way of supervising your employee. You closely monitor, or you meticulously monitor all the working of your employees. Right. The next one is, the next element that you need to keep in mind is your motivation of your Salesforce team. Now, motivation is extremely important for your sales team. If there's no motivation, they would not want to come to work at the very, at the first place. You need to make your employees, you need to engage your employees in such a way that they feel enthusiastic about their work. One of the, success of a manager is that they make their employees motivated, and they make them feel important, and they make them feel valued, right? So that's what you want to do when you're trying to manage your sales force. You want to make sure that the employee feels valued, the employee feels an important and integral part of the organization. Now, sales morale and performance can be increased through your organizational structure, through your sales quota and positive incentives that you might give. Now, what is organizational climate? What do I mean by organizational climate? I mean the feeling about the values and rewards the person might get, right? So, overall climate of the organization needs to be created in such a way that people value the organizational goals and they take them as their own. So the organizational climate has been designed in such a way that everybody is enthusiastic in terms of working for the organization towards the organizational goals. Then you could have sales quota. Anybody who achieves the sales quota gets a certain reward. So that's an exciting way of motivating your employees, right? And that's what the theory about, what was I don't remember the theory. I'll discuss it in the next class. Let's see if I can remember it. Right. So positive incentives is the next way through which you could increase your sales morale and performance of your employees. You could give them positive incentives in terms of maybe paid vacation or something like that, so that they could feel motivated into working better and improving their performance. Now you could also evaluate salesperson and Salesforce performance. One of the important aspects when it comes to managing anything in business is evaluating how did the process go. So for any process that you undertake, at the end of it, you must evaluate the overall process. And that's what this point says. It says evaluating salesperson and Salesforce performance. Now, how do you evaluate the performance? You have sales reports, you have call reports, you have expense reports that tell you the overall working of a salesperson. Now, call reports are the reports that are actually work plans. So what does a salesperson expect to do in the, let's say, next quarter or so? How many prospective clients does he want to approach? How many calls does he plan to make? So these are all sales reports. On the other hand, call reports are the reports that pertain to your completed activities. What clients did you approach? Many companies ask for day-to-day call reports, right? So how many people did you meet today? How many sales did you close today? How many follow-ups did you make today, right? So you file call reports, and the call reports are a wonderful way to tell the working of your salespeople. And you have expense report. How many expenses did you incur? Where did you go? Let's say I went from here to Lahore. This much was the fuel cost. Here I stayed. All these are expense reports. So this is all about managing the sales force. Right. So we've done managing sales force. Let's talk about the personal selling process. How do you go about when it comes to personal selling. So the goal of personal selling is to get new customers and to obtain orders from your customers. So that's the primary motive of personal selling, to approach a new client and to get a sale from a client. Now there are different steps when it comes to personal selling. The first step is called prospecting. Now prospecting identifies qualified potential customers, the people who can afford to pay your product and would need your product. Those are your prospective clients, right? So when you search for your prospective clients, the people who could afford your product, that phase is called prospecting. Now, how do you get to know who could be your potential customer? One easy way to know your potential customer or who could be your potential customer is through referrals. Now, you could take referrals from your customers, from your suppliers, from different dealers. So all these are a wonderful way to get referrals. For instance, I'm selling insurance. I approach a client and I am able to close the deal. I'm able to sell the product to that client, and at the end of it I would ask if a friend of yours or a family member of yours you think might need this product, and he might suggest me 2 people, right? Based on that referral, I'll approach those 2 people, right? Those 2 people again were successful. I was successful in selling them product. Those 2 people again refer me to 3 more people, and it has a snowball effect. So you keep on getting referrals and referrals from each client that you approach. So that snowball effect gives you a lot of prospective clients to approach to. So that is one method of getting to know who could be your possible client. Another way could be you could go up the internet, look up the people, organization who have needs that you could fulfill as an organization. So this is a wonderful way to see who could buy your product. Then the next element is qualifying. Who qualifies for your to be a good customer, a valuable customer, a customer with whom you could have profitable relationship, or with whom you could build relationship that could pay off in the future. So all those customers are your good customer, right? So good prospective customers you identify in this particular step, that is qualifying. Now, in qualifying, what you do is you identify customers and screen out the poor ones by looking at these features. So what is the financial ability of the customer? How much volume of business can he give you? What can you satisfy the need that he has? Let's say if he has a need and he's trying to look to satisfy that need, but you don't have the right product for it, that means he's not your prospective customer, right? So if somebody is extremely hungry and he's looking for food and you sell only tech related products, that means he has a lot of money in his pocket. He's willing to spend it, yet you do not have the right product for him to satisfy his need. That means he's not your prospective client. So you need to see his need. Then location. Is he approachable? Can you send the product to him? Can you approach him? That is also one thing that you need to consider. For instance, you have a client who has great financial ability, can give you a lot of business, has the need of your product as well, but is settled in India, right? Can you approach him? You would have a very difficult time approaching that client because he is in another country that is hostile to us, right? So there would be a lot of issues doing business with that client. So again, that client would not pass your screening process. It would not qualify to being a good customer, and how much growth potential you have with that client. So a client initially may be very small, right? He would have a limited financial investment, but you expect him to grow big in the next, let's say, 5-6 years. Now he is a great prospect for your organization, and he would qualify to be a good customer. Then the next process is the pre-approach process. You know, the pre-approach process sort of works on making short calls to somebody. Why would you want to do that? Because you want to make sure that you know the client and you know the organization as well. So you need to know both the person that you would be dealing with and the organization at the very same time as well, before you actually go there physically and make a offer, make a presentation. So to understand your prospective customer, the person who qualified or the organization that qualified to be your prospective client, to understand those qualified customers better, you do the pre-approach process. So pre-approach process is the process of learning as much as possible about a prospect, including needs, who is involved in buying, and the characteristics and styles of buyers. So how would they buy the product, who would be interacting with you, what sort of personality does that buyer has, what sort of personality does the organization have, what is the organizational need, how to best approach the client. So all these questions are answered in the pre-approach process. Now what happens in pre-approach is that you in pre-approach you set your objectives, right? So sales people set objectives. The objective might be to qualify the prospect, right? So in the previous process qualifying, you decided that this employee was, you could approach this client or investigate about this particular prospect more. You go into the pre-approach process and you realize that this particular employee wasn't good, this particular organization wasn't good enough. That means you would drop them off your list of clients that you would want to approach further. So it would tell you if the prospect actually qualifies to be your customer. It could help you gather information about the organization to make an effective sales pitch, and then help you make an immediate sale as well. So you call somebody up, you tell them, I would like to approach you, this is problem solution. They say, okay, we don't need a presentation, send in the product, right? You could make a sale at that point. If you're lucky enough, you could make the sale. Then you could have, how do you go about pre-approach process? You could make a personal visit, write a letter, or you could make a phone call. Then the next step when it comes to personal selling is approach. Now approach is the process where the salesperson meets and greets the buyer and gets the relationship off to a good start, and involves the salesperson's appearance, opening lines, and follow-up remarks. So when you actually go into an organization, meet your prospective buyer, that is the approach step of the personal selling process, right? Now in this particular process, one of the important things is how you appear, right? How you look. So the way you dress up tells how serious are you in your business, right? So if you're dressed very casually, maybe in a t-shirt that has some sort of funny character thing going on, your hair is all messed up, you're wearing slippers, that obviously tells you how casual you are as a business person. If you're properly suited and you have all the details with you that the client might ask for, that means you're well prepared for the presentation, and that shows your professionalism, and companies like to work with people who are professional, right? So you need to make sure that you look a certain way that business would be interested in working with you. Then how you meet and greet that also says a lot about your organization. A well-trained salesperson, would make, very fine opening lines. He would greet properly. He would use the right words. He would try to convince the people into buying their product by, addressing their need, or not sort of throwing their product, to the customer, rather than, taking the value approach. Then follow-up remarks also are extremely important. Now, opening lines should be positive. They need to focus on building goodwill and positive image of the company. You need to learn about, you need to answer the key questions that the customer might have. You need to address their grievances, talk to them properly, show that you're willing to, address their problems at any level. So the most important aspect when it comes to approach is listen to what client has to say, and don't just tell what you have to say, right? Listen to them first, understand their need, and then present them a solution that could satisfy their need. Then once you approach them, you need to make the presentation. The presentation is when the salesperson tells the product story to the buyer. Right? This is our product, this is how it works, these are the features it has, this is the augmented level of the product, this is how it would satisfy your need, and this is how it would resolve the problem that you might have, right? So you make the presentation. Now these are the traits of a bad salesperson, those are the traits of a good salesperson. So a bad salesperson would be pushy. He would come late for the meeting. If somebody is late for the meeting, it right away gives a signal to the company, your prospective client, that the company approaching is not professional enough, and it's not dependable enough. You might be disorganized. You might not bring all the documents that are required for settling in the deal. You could be unprepared. You would, you might, lack the product knowledge to convince the customer into buying your product. So all these traits are traits of a bad salesperson. On the other hand, a good salesperson would listen to your, problems. Try to understand your problems. Be honest of what the company can offer you. And how well it could resolve the issue, comes up on time. He's very dependable, and he wants to settle the problem, as well as he possibly can. Then in the next step, you handle the objections. So once your prospective client has listened to what you have to say, he would raise objections. He would raise questions, right? So the objections might be logical, completely logical, that this particular product does not fulfill this need of ours. This is a very logical way of telling the salesperson that your product lacks this thing, right? And there are other psychological ways in which, the manager wouldn't be, raising questions that are, that are not very reasonable to be raised, right? And then there's body language as well that tells you a lot about the objections that your prospective client might have. So you need to address all these, the unspoken, objections, the spoken objections, the logical, the illogical. So a good salesperson knows how to deal with all sorts of objections. Once you've handled that question and answer session, the objection session, then you move on to the second last step of personal selling process, that is closing. Now in closing, you go for asking your prospective client to buy the product, or it is the process in which order is asked for, right? So you would ask for order directly, or you could ask them, so to sort of work together into resolving the problem make an agreement into buying the product, let's say in the next near future. Many ways of closing the sales, but the idea is that you would want to convince the customer into buying the product. So once you've closed the sale, then you go for follow-up. Right? Follow-up is the last step in which the salesperson follows up the sale in order to ensure that the customer satisfaction is achieved and that the customer gives you a repeat business. Right? So let's say a customer has purchased the product once. Would he buy the second time? It depends upon the customer satisfaction, right? So you've sold the product, then you call your client up and ask for, was the installation proper? Was the after-sales service, is the after-sales service good enough? Is the product resolving your problem or not? What sort of issues are you having with your product? Can we resolve them? All of these efforts are done so as to gain customer satisfaction. Once the customer is satisfied from your product, then he would go think about buying it a second time. So that is follow-up. Now, personal selling, all the personal selling process that we've done so far, from prospecting to follow-up, all this is transaction oriented. You want to make a transaction from all this process. The achievement of goal is the idea of all that process. So it is very transaction oriented. But these days, as we said earlier, companies are moving away from transaction oriented selling towards relationship building. So what salespeople are now being trained to do is they're being trained to not just sell the product but to sell the value and build on relationship. So if you sell the value, the product might go obsolete but the value would not, and the people would stay loyal to your organization, right? So for long-term relationship, you need to stay focused on selling value rather than the selling of the product. That's what we've been talking about since the first chapter, right? We talked about setting up your mission statement, not market oriented, not product oriented, but actually value oriented. Right, so this was all about personal selling. Now let's talk about the next element, that is sales promotion. Now, a sales promotion refers to the short-term incentives to encourage purchase or sale of a good or service, right? So, to encourage people to increase their consumption of the product or to increase the sale of the product in short term, what you do is sales promotion. Now, sales promotion could be consumer sales promotion, where you make sales promotion to the consumer. Then it could be trade sale promotion, that is promoting your product to the wholesaler and retailers. And then it could be Salesforce promotion, where you could give incentives to your sales force who are selling your product. So these are the three different types of sales promotion activities. Now, why would you want to do sales promotion? The first reason why you would want to do sales promotion is product managers are under pressure to increase current sales. Now, we're living in an extremely competitive world, right? If you don't make the sale, if you do not generate enough profit, you would soon go out of business, and that's not what you want, right? So in a very competitive world, you need to increase your sales. And one of the ways in which managers increase their sale is through sales promotion. Again, you have a lot of competition, you have a lot of companies working, so there are a lot of undifferentiated brands that are available, right? So undifferentiated brands we talked about earlier are the brands that are, very easily substitutable, right? So if I don't find Noorpur in the store, I would go for Nestle milk pack. If I don't find Nestle milk pack, I would go for Allpurs. If I don't find Allpurs, I would switch to some other brand. So these are easily substitutable brands. So how do you make your brand differentiated in an undifferentiated brand market? The way to do that is through sales promotion, right? So, for instance, many people wanted to buy Noorpur in Ramazan for the simple reason that there was a bottle of Ruh Afza free coming with it. And Ruh Afza is, a traditional drink whose consumption is, triples or maybe gets 10 times in Ramazan, right? So that is one of the reasons of sales promotion. Then advertising efficiency has reduced tremendously, and that is as a result of advertising clutter. And advertising clutter is basically, you see so many ads these days that, people just cannot focus on that much information, that much, advertising that is done, right? So they pick and choose selective advertisements. That has created a situation called advertising clutter. So to stand out of that advertising clutter, companies are now going for other options of promoting their product. And one of the options is sales promotion. Then consumers have become more deal-oriented. Again, since there are a lot of products that are undifferentiated, people can easily substitute the products. Therefore, the customers are exceedingly deal-prone, right? So if you don't give me a good deal, I would go to somebody else who does give me a good deal. So the customers are extremely deal-prone, so they would not buy the product unless and until you provide them with a good deal. Right. Then setting sales promotion objectives is another task that the company has to perform. They need to set tasks based on the type of promotion that they're doing, whether it's a customer promotion. If it's a customer promotion, you want to, increase your short-term sales. If it's a trade promotion, you would want to encourage your wholesaler to push your product. You would want the retailers to give you a good shelf space. That could be, one of the objectives of trade promotions. Then you could have Salesforce promotions where you could encourage your sales force to, work better into making more sales, building better relationships. So these are different objectives that a company might have when it comes to sales promotion. Now these are major sales promotion tools: samples, coupons, cash refunds, price packs, premiums, advertising specialties, patronage rewards, point of purchase, demonstration, contest, sweepstakes, and games. Right. So let's quickly explain all these different tools that you employ in sales promotion. The first one is samples. Now what samples do is they offer a trial version of the product, right? So you have sachets of a new shampoo that are being distributed free in a retail outlet, right? So you go to Carrefour, they would give out free testers of a particular shampoo or a particular conditioner or maybe a particular toothpaste, right? So these are all samples, small amounts of the product so that they could initiate trial. Then you have coupons. What happens in coupons is coupons are actually gift certificates that you give out to your prospective client. You may distribute them through newspaper. You could distribute them through various mediums. Those carrying the certificate could get, let's say, 30% off on a particular product. Buy one get one free coupons. Different type of such promotional activities are done by the organization. For instance, let's say you buy a magazine, let's say Cosmopolitan, for instance, or Times magazine. You buy Times magazine, there's a coupon in it that says 20% off on Chai Khana. You cut that out, take it to Chai Khana, and on your bill they would give you 20% off. So that is a coupon. Then you have cash refunds. Cash refunds are very similar to coupons, except the price reduction occurs after the purchase, right? So after the purchase, once you've bought the product, then you get refunds. The concept of cash refunds and cash rebates is the same, whereby once you've made the purchase, only then you get, you know, a certain amount sent back to you. For instance, let's say you buy, you know, a new Toyota Corolla car, right? And they give you that car for, let's say, 20 lakhs. Once you bought the car, you would send them the receipt to, you know, Toyota company, and they, let's say, they would send you 50,000 back. That is cash refund or cash rebate. Why do companies do cash rebates? Because sometimes they want to offer the benefit to the end customer, but during that, you know, product movement from one channel to the, you know, from one element of the channel to the other element, that benefit gets lost, right? So to make sure that the end customer does get the benefit, they keep the benefit in their hand, right? So let's say if the car, if they reduce the price to 19 lakh and 50,000 rather than, you know, 20 lakh, then what would happen? If they reduce the price to 19 lakh, then that 50,000 may be kept in the pockets of, you know, the distributor, and he might not give that 50,000 benefit to the end customer and sell the product for 20 lakhs. So to make sure that the end customer gets the benefit, the company usually go for cash refunds or cash rebates. Then you have price packs. Price packs offer consumer savings of the regular price of the product. That are price packs, right? So you have 10% off on Dalda, you have rupees 20 off on Colgate, you have rupees 30 off on, you know, a certain brand of, let's say, shampoos. So this is all price pack, where you offer consumer savings of the regular price of a product. Then you have premiums. Premiums are the gifts that you get with different products. So you buy a pack of, you know, a bundle of Maggi and you get a bowl free. You buy Cocoa Crunch and you get a bowl free. You buy Oreos and you get a lunch box free. All these are premiums that you get with product, again, sales promotion techniques. Then you have advertising specialities. Now, advertising specialities are useful articles imprinted with advertiser's name, logo, you know, and that are given out as gifts, right? So you go to the mall, they give you a t-shirt with Nescafe written on it, or Telenor written on it, or Ufone written on it, right? So these are advertising specialties. Now in the short run, they might not end up in increasing the sales of the company, right? But they would keep on reminding you about the company every time you wear that shirt. So every time you put on the shirt that says Nescafe, you would read that Nescafe logo, or you would see that Nescafe logo. Once you see that, you know, brand name gets into your mind again and again. And eventually when you go buy coffee for yourself, you might end up buying Nescafe rather than any other brand available in the market. Right, so next you have point of purchase promotions. Point of purchase promotions include displays, demonstrations that take place at the point of sale. So you have, you know, cardboard cutouts of, let's say, Commander Safeguard, point of purchase display. You have, you know, cutouts of, you know, Michelin Man, or, you know, Mr. You know, Clean. So these are all point of purchase displays. Then you have contests, you have sweepstakes, you have games. They are also a wonderful way of promoting your products. Now what happens in contests is that you know, your customer is expected to send in an entry. On the basis of that entry, they would be sent out, you know, if they win, they would be sent out with a present. Sweepstakes, on the other hand, is more like lottery. You send in your name and they take the draw out and whoever wins, right? So that is more like a lottery. And then on the other hand, you have games where people come, play games, interact, with the company sales representative, and as a result of which whoever wins the game gets the prize, right? So that is another way of sales promotion. This was all about customer sales promotion. Now we're going to talk about trade promotional tools. Now in trade promotional tools, what happens is that you might get discounts for promoting, if the product is, let's say, rupees 20 in the market, they might give you the product for a discounted price of, let's say, rupees 17. So your profit margin could increase. That is one way of increasing or encouraging your trade partners to have your product on board. Then you could compensate your trade partners, your retailers, your wholesalers for giving you shelf space, for giving you better shelf space. So you could compensate them through allowances. You could send out pens, diaries, paperweights, mugs, all such stuff for their office use. That falls under specialty advertising. And then you could also offer them free goods. That is another way of promoting your product within your trade network. Then the next one category is business promotional tools. Now in business promotional tools, you have sale contests, you have conventions, trade shows. So you could put the product in a trade show and have people come up to you, ask questions from you, ask for presentations, and as a result of which you're able to reach out to customers that you would not have had normally reached, right? So it gives you a new customer base, a lot of new referrals when you go to different trade shows. It's a wonderful way of promoting your product. Then you could have sales contests where you could motivate salesperson or dealers to increase their performance within a given period of time and maybe get a paid vacation, get a new car, something like that. Right, so this was all three different types of sales promotions. Now we're going to talk about developing your sales promotion program. Now, what different factors do you need to look into when you're designing your sales promotion program? The first thing that you need to see is size of the incentive. How big of the incentive would you give out, right? So depending upon the campaign that you're running, you decide the size of the incentive. Once you've decided that, then you would decide who would participate in that sales promotion activity. Would that be for a particular group of clients, or would that be for everyone, right? So let's say Serena is doing a sales promotion activity. Would it be for their privileged club members only, or for every customer that comes and walks in Serena, right? So that is something that Serena has to decide. So that is another important decision that they need to take. Then promote and distribute the product. How would you would promote that this sales promotion activity is taking place, and how would you distribute the program of it? Then how long would you carry out the sales promotion activity? Obviously it costs a lot of money to run these sales promotion activities, so you need to decide what would be the length of it. So for few sales promotion activities, they are for a very small period of time. Let's say maybe for a day even. Some go past, let's say, a month. For instance, in Ramzan you have campaigns specifically designed for that period, for those 30 days. So that is a sales promotion activity for Ramzan only. So you need to decide the length of the program, and then you need to evaluate the program. Was the sales promotion activity worth it or not? Did it provide you with the results that you needed or not? And the results are in terms of usually sales, because that's the idea of sales promotion activity, to increase your sales in the short term, right? So one way to gauge the activity, if the activity was in the positive direction or not, is to view your sales before the sales promotion activity and after the sales promotion activity. So it would give you a fair idea if the sales promotion activity did actually work or not, right? So this was sales promotion. Now a lot of students, what they do is they sort of mix the sales promotion activities and the PR activities and advertising. You know, they keep on mixing them up. What you need to understand is all these promotional tool mix are related to each other, right? All the 4 elements that we've studied so far are related to each other. It depends upon the objective of your campaign that would decide if it's a PR promotion or if it's a sales promotion, right? So if you see the different promotional tools that we've discussed, you might want to sponsor an event, and it might be a PR stunt, or it might be a PR strategy, or it might be a sales promotion activity. What would decide if it's a PR activity or a sales promotion activity? The underlying objective would decide if it's a PR activity or sales promotion activity. So if the idea is that you want to, you know, create goodwill into the market and positive image of the company in the market, then it would be a PR activity. If the idea is to increase the sales of the product in short term, then it would be a sales promotion activity. So you need to clarify here that all these activities are linked together, and that's why they're, you know, represented under a common head of promotional tools, right? So this is the end of promotional mix, and this is the end of the lecture as well. Thank you for joining us.